What's up, Earth's mightiest subscribers? It's Blerd without fear. Welcome back to the channel. Alright, today's video we're going to be talking about Duo #1 by Greg Pak and Koi Pham. And in this video, we're going to talk about how Milestone has taken one of the original Milestone media characters, XOMBI, remixed him a little bit, and updated him for a new generation. We'll also talk about whether or not this is connected to the wider DC Comics universe and the rest of the Dakotaverse. We're going to talk about all this and more right now, but first, let's hit that intro.
You can't see me, you Stevie, wondering how I reach more evolutions than Evie and make it look easy.
For those who are not familiar with the character of XOMBI, I did a video about this character a ways back. I will try to remember to link this in the description or pin comment below or put in the cards to pop up right around, roughly around this timestamp, and you can go check that out. I don't want to really rehash the entire origin of XOMBI and where he comes from, what he can do, whatever. What I can say, however, is that the original version of XOMBI, who debuted in XOMBI #0 back in 1994, this character was a guy by the name of David Kim, and he created these nanomachines that were meant to help people recover from serious wounds, grievous injuries, all kinds of crazy diseases that were thought incurable. And someone tried to steal it from him, but in the process of that, the nanomachines got loose, got into his body, and these nanomachines, they require both organic and inorganic matter in order to heal. Like, say if somebody gets their arm cut off, well, they just take part from someone else, recreate whatever it was lost on that person. Well, in the original series, David's assistant, Kelly, was in the room with him when the nanomachines got loose. So the nanomachines killed her and then used her body to reconstitute Dr. David Kim's. In this particular instance, it's kind of the same, but kind of not. In this particular version, David and Kelly are working together as scientists. This is kind of close to what it was before, but instead of being one of these deals where Kelly is his assistant, they are professional equals. In this particular iteration, not only are they professional equals, both Kelly and David are engaged to one another and have been working on this project for the longest time. And they're kind of like the wide-eyed optimistics. They want to save the world and they believe they have the power to do it, and that's kind of what's fueling them to do everything that they're doing right now. And whereas in the original series, there was a villain by the name of Sugarman, dumb name, but hey, just go with it for a minute. Sugarman tries to break into David's office to try and steal that nanomachine technology. However, in this particular instance, there is no Sugarman, at least, not as much as we know. However, there are some individuals who break into their laboratory and try to take the nanomachine formula from them. And these enemies, while they don't look like Sugarman, they're kind of reminiscent of Sugarman. Now, these guys are working for some kind of a shady business type guy by the name of Marius Chung, who we later realize is a lot more than what he appears. And these Quotey Fingers assassins, they kill David Kim. Kelly enters into the picture. She sees David Kim hurt, and they had already talked and experimented with the idea of using some kind of a human command to control how the nanomachines operate, because they can't necessarily reconstitute anything perfectly. They can put stuff back, but they don't really know exactly how to do it. And the whole idea is that they want to try and make it where they add in a human interface, a link to the human mind and the nanomachines. They would be able to better control how the nanomachines reconstitute a person who, say, maybe lost a limb or need like a heart valve replaced or has a broken bone that needs to be reset. Everything can be put back the right way, as opposed to looking like a toddler got a hold of it and just started putting Legos wherever. Only in this case, the nanomachines, when they get free, needing matter to revive David Kim, they take the nearest source, and that's Kelly, pretty much consuming her entire body, save for a few scraps of bone. And next thing you know, David wakes up in the hospital. He's as good as new. However, he keeps hearing someone screaming in his head. This is where the new version of Milestone has changed XOMBI from his original Milestone counterpart back in 1994. In the original series, Kelly was a largely inconsequential character. She pretty much got fridged out of nowhere and literally was just a plot device, a very quick one, mind you, just to get XOMBI into his origin. And while yes, he does lament her death, it's one of those deals where it's like, no, she doesn't necessarily come back as some voice in his head. In this version, they changed that. This is why the book is not called XOMBI, but it's called Duo instead, because this is a situation where Kelly is now inside of David Kim's mind. She still exists. Her essence and her consciousness are inside of his own body. And this is why when he kind of dives back into his I guess his mindscape, for lack of a better way to put it. That's why he sees her. This is also why he can hear her even when he's not focusing on his mindscape. Now, of course, it doesn't take Kelly any time to figure out that the person who did this to them is the businessman who they tried to get to help fund their research on this nanomachine technology, who also decided that he didn't want to invest in them, that he wanted to just buy them out. And turns out this guy is, as I said before, he's a lot more than he appears. There's more to him than meets the eye. Who or exactly what he is, we don't know. We do know that his assassins work for him, but we do know that he is connected to some kind of realm of the supernatural. Now, for those who are not familiar with the original XOMBI series, XOMBI did deal very heavily with supernatural and otherworldly elements, being able to travel through different dimensions, dealing with magic and all sorts of other kind of, existential mumbo jumbo. And in that, they did actually experiment sometimes with having XOMBI travel to not necessarily a parallel universe, but another plane of existence where other godlike and supernatural entities would exist. And in this case, it seems this guy is kind of the same. He's apparently part of something which I'm assuming is called the Immutables, which are seemingly immortal beings, as Marius points out, but in the next issue is called Rise of the Immutables, and since these guys are the ones that are pictured, I think it's safe to say that's what they are. This is not from the original series, but I feel like elements of this do come from the original 21-issue XOMBI series, in some way, shape, form, or fashion. Not exactly, but it kind of seems like they're taking certain pieces and parts of that series and kind of reconstituting them into something else. Otherwise, XOMBI is pretty much as he was before. He has a super suit now in this series, which I think is interesting because he didn't really have one before. He was just a guy who kind of walked around in plain clothes. He was pretty much Korean Constantine. If you took Constantine, made him Korean, and gave him a healing factor that was probably even better than Wolverine or Deadpool's, this guy could literally get an arm cut off and have it back within a matter of a couple of panels. There have been times where his entire face has been ripped off and literally by the next page, it's back on as if nothing ever happened. XOMBI was a really cool character, and I always thought it was interesting that, it didn't seem like they were going to bring him back. Now, of course, when they released the Milestone Returns 0 issue, there was tease of this group. And once I kind of looked at the character, I was like, oh, wait a minute, this looks kind of like XOMBI. And I was like, oh, this is XOMBI. And then, you flash forward a year or so later, we now have him here. Now, does this connect to the DC Comics universe or the Milestone Dakotaverse? How does this all set up? Well, this is all a part of what they call Earth M. It's basically another Earth in the DC Comics multiverse. Now, is this separate from the Dakotaverse? That's hard to say, but I guess judging by the language that's on the front of this book, it does say Beyond Dakota City and Milestone discover Earth M, which leads me to believe this is some kind of a separate Earth. Now, we have not really gotten any mention about the existence of characters like Wonder Woman in the Milestone Returns universe, but we do know characters like Superman were present in that universe and that he was killed off, as was mentioned in Icon and Rocket season 1, that he was killed off when he was a child by Benedict Lord, the arch nemesis of Icon and Rocket. But there was never any mention of characters like Wonder Woman, really. And in this instance, apparently Wonder Woman does exist, as we see Kelly wearing a Wonder Woman shirt earlier in the issue. I'm gonna go on a limb and say that this is probably some kind of other Earth, though I do kind of feel like Earth M, I feel like was originally announced as being something that did encompass the entire Dakotaverse, but it's kind of nebulous as to what's really going on there. The only reason why I say that I think that this character doesn't exist in the same universe as the other Milestone Media characters is because, for the most part, the Earth M branding hasn't shown up on any of the other comics in the Milestone comics launch right now. Static doesn't have it, Icon and Rocket don't have it, and Hardware doesn't have it. Hell, the Blood Syndicate that just recently started, they don't have it either. And none of those other books really ever talk about anything not existing or being beyond the Dakotaverse or Dakota City or Milestone, whatever. So I'm gonna go in and say this guy exists in his own little pocket of Milestone that is maybe just an alternate Earth than the one that we're used to seeing, as per usual in Milestone Returns. All that aside, though, this is pretty interesting. I'm curious to see how they connect this, or if it ever does connect, or if this branding, this Earth M branding, which was something that was technically brought up back even before Milestone Returns was even officially relaunched and announced. I'm talking going back to like 2015, 2016. Earth M was something that was heavily hyped up by Reggie Hudlin and Dennis Cowan as what was going to be the Earth for the entire Milestone Media run. So maybe this is just their way of finally banking on that, and if that's the case, then yeah, maybe all of this is Earth M. Because clearly Icon and Rocket don't exist in the same realm as DC Comics, at least, I mean, they do, but not as in terms of Earth Prime, whereas, we clearly know Superman's not, dead, at least, well, he wasn't before, Dark Crisis. But as all of that was coming out before that, in the Milestone universe, Superman was killed when he was an infant, so it was clearly an alternate Earth within the DC Comics multiverse. But was it Earth M? It's never really been specifically stated. This is everything I wanted to talk about with Duo. I just kind of want to do a little quick video to kind of, I don't know if it was quick, it probably wasn't, but I just wanted to talk about this real quick because I thought it was really cool. This is something that is really interesting to me, and I'm glad that this character that I felt like was just kind of forgotten about. Like, when everyone talks about Milestone, Zombie is the one character no one ever really brings up. I mean, well, other than Cobalt. But Zombie was something that was really original. He was the first, by my estimation, the first Korean superhero to have his own title. No other Korean superhero could say that. Even though technically there were Korean superheroes before him, but none of them ever had their own book. But anyways, let me know what you thought about Duo. Keep it plus ultra and sound off in the comments.